Breaking news, Mavericks are trading Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis.
This deal materialized in the shadows. Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis, LeBron James had no idea this was coming.
This was the biggest trade in NBA history.
LeBron has dreamed about playing with Luka Doncic for years.
Dallas Mavericks, clearly you lost all faith in Luka Doncic.
Dallas won it for the now, and the Lakers won it for the future.
Well, let's talk about the now, because Luka Doncic, former Maverick, now with the Lakers, back in action last night in Charlotte, Chiney. And minutes into the first, Luka.
Okay, that play should tell you everything you need to know. That play and the wink. He was like cheeky Luka yesterday.
You like how I was trying to set it up all that? Yeah. You're like, no, this tells you everything you need to know. Doncic, the running floater, banks it in. 21 first-half points for Doncic, his 7th 20-point half this season, Brian.
Well, when he is comfortable, you are in trouble, and he was very clearly comfortable.
When he's smiling, when he's winking, when he's having little non-shot makes, contests.
How does he always create space? He doesn't even move that fast, Chiney, but he creates space every time.
Created space here, sneaks inside for the jam. Doncic fired up after a rare dunk. He had 38 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 35 or more points in 5 of 7 games this season, by the way. Now, the Mavericks, they hosted the Bucks last night in what Giannis called multiple times a must-win. I do think this may have been Cooper's best game of the season.
That was an incredible play. He got the rebound and went down and looked for that shot. He didn't even react. That was the best moment of his career to this point.
Next Bucks possession, Ryan Rollins, who's been great for them this year, drives to the basket, finishes the layup. Bucks take the lead.
Traffic.
And then the Mavs inbounding here. Flagg falls, and Kuzma steals it and dunks.
Uses the opportunity.
Can't make the gamble there. So here's a last chance for the Dallas Mavericks. P.J. Washington gets the offensive rebound, shoots the 3, and is fouled by Giannis. Giannis can't believe it. So Washington's at the free throw line, and here is what it sounded like.
It'll be...
Yep, that's right. Fire Nico chant. So after Washington misses the second free throw, the Mavs fan base were chanting, and he misses this. Mavs can't get the rebound. The Bucks go on to get the win. And that loss was the final straw for Patrick Dumont and the rest of the Mavericks ownership to fire Nico Harrison as the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. That happened earlier today. Now, in 4 seasons as GM in Dallas, Nico was the driving force behind the trading of Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. But he also oversaw Jalen Brunson leaving in free agency, as well as acquiring Kyrie Irving. And that helped propel them to the 2024 NBA Finals. Now, you don't need to read all this. Just know that Nico was busy in his tenure as GM, but it did come at a price. The Mavericks triggered the second apron when D'Angelo Russell was signed to that tax mid-level exception. Plus, Dallas doesn't have full control of much of their future draft capital. They only have 2 available first-round picks to trade in the next 7 years. So take a photo of that, read it later. Back with us here on NBA Today is our senior reporter, Tim MacMahon here. 3-8 was not the start, MacMahon, to the season that the Mavericks ownership had envisioned after acquiring Cooper Flagg with that first overall pick. So why have the Dallas Mavericks made this move today?
Howdy again, Malika. Why didn't they make this move last summer? I mean, the relationship with the fans was not going to be repaired. Nico Harrison was always going to be the guy who traded Luka Doncic. And look, you want to talk about the benefit of hindsight. Hindsight at the time of the trade was Luka had just led the league in scoring, averaged almost a triple-double, and took your franchise to the NBA Finals. And by the way, he was just about to enter his prime. That was something that was never going to be forgiven. It was simply a matter of time even entering this season. And then they get off to a 3-8 start. They are one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA. Oh, by the way, while Luka's leading the league in scoring, Nico Harrison could not continue to be the focal point for this fan base. Time to turn the page, time to focus on Cooper Flagg, time to focus on building around him. And as you mentioned, there are some built-in challenges because of the picks you gave up while successfully building a contender around Luka Doncic.
The Dirk years, the Luka years, but that's sort of started to change here. As you can see, they finally had a change in their sellouts. 24 years consecutively, that was snapped this year, October 29th of 2025. And that, I just think, symbolizes the disconnect from this team and their fan base. So joining us now is our front office insider, Bobby Marks. Bobby, what happens now? This feels like step one. What do the Mavericks need to do next?
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, Matt Riccardi, who is the interim GM right now, I hired him in Brooklyn, and he was my assistant there. So knowing Matt, I think there's a short and there's a long-term approach as far as how you look at this. The short term is that you're going to continue evaluating the roster. Fortunately, 6 out of your next 7 games are at home, and hopefully that you're going to get Anthony Davis back here soon. I do think there still is a priority, Malika, to try to address that point guard situation. We saw D'Angelo Russell start. We saw Brandon Williams start last night. How do you fix that leading up until December 15th? I think the biggest question for me, and you outlined it perfectly, where they are at the second apron this year, where they are with the draft equity moving forward or lack of. Does Matt and Michael Finley, who are the co-interim GMs, have authority to go out and make a big move when we get closer to the February 5th trade deadline? Remember, 90% of players will be eligible starting December 15th. I'm not saying a Luka Doncic type trade, but do they have authority to shake up this roster over the next couple months here?
Do they, Tim? I mean, when you say a big trade, what I think of and what I think Dallas Mavericks fans may be asking, is Anthony Davis someone who's on the roster? Is that the question that's being asked around Dallas right now, Tim?
I think that's the question that's going to be asked as Patrick Dumont is meeting with Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi. Also, as Patrick Dumont is interviewing other potential candidates to take the job on a full-time basis. Is there a quick fix? Let's be honest. Probably not, okay? You have to take a long-term view. You were gifted, 1.8% lottery chance gifted, a potential generational talent, an 18-year-old Cooper Flagg. The long-term view building around Cooper Flagg has to be the priority over any quick fixes. That 3 to 4 year window got fired today. Okay, that's gone. It never really opened. It's absolutely closed now. The long term has to be the priority. And if you're prioritizing the long term, your question, do you explore the trade market for Anthony Davis, has to be asked and has to be discussed.
Let's talk about 3 knowns, okay? One known is that AD and Kyrie Irving have basically not played together at all.
Yeah.
Basically relative seconds they've played together. So not only do we really not know how they match up, we don't really know what they can do this season. We don't know when Kyrie's going to come back, okay? That's number 1. Number 2, as Bobby laid out, the Mavericks control their draft in just 2 of the next 7 years.
Right.
But one of them is 2026. And the third thing that we know is that this is a generational draft.
Yep.
So this is not really a conversation necessarily have in November, but as this season goes along, as you watch NBA Today, what you're going to be hearing more and more of is teams beginning to struggle with what they should do with their roster looking at this draft. And I now have the Mavericks in that basket. That decision is probably not going to get made today. That decision has some unknowns because of Kyrie's health, but they are going to be a team because this is actually a draft pick that they control, and they've got an 18-year-old that is their future, who the dream would be you could put somebody next to him that is going to be on the plate of who's ever making big decisions later this season.
And you have the parent of that 18-year-old draft pick to generational talent in Cooper Flagg reposting things on social media about how he should not be needing to listen to fire Nico Harrison chants as he's trying to get his footing underneath him in the NBA. Now that is not going to be the case. They have fired Nico, but the decisions now are only beginning for the Dallas Mavericks, who, like you said, are having to say, okay, we're done with this 3-4 year window thing. Who is going to be the players that we need to move forward with now in order to build a contender potentially later? Gentlemen, there's a lot to get to, and you said it, Brian. We're going to be unpacking this for the next several days. Shams, now that Nico Harrison is out, what can we expect to happen now with the Dallas Mavericks?
Malika, right now there's a lot of internal conversations. You have Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi, their current executives there. They will assume co-interim general manager positions. But the Mavericks are now going to undertake a full, comprehensive search for the next head of basketball operations. And there are significant decisions that need to be made in the immediate future and moving forward for the Mavericks, because this is a team that's 3-8, one of the worst teams in the NBA. And so what position do you move forward with? You have talented players on the roster. There are teams keeping an eye on the direction. Players like Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, Kyrie Irving even on this roster. This 2026 NBA draft is the last draft they control their pick until 2031. So do you go younger? Do you build more around Cooper Flagg and a younger group? And one name to keep an eye on for the head of basketball operations is Dennis Lindsey. He's currently in Detroit. He used to head up the Utah Jazz He also was an advisor for that 2023-2024 Dallas Mavericks team that made it to the NBA Finals. And so who's going to be calling the shots, making the decisions on the direction of this Mavericks organization? That's what Patrick Dumont and his ownership group will now handle.
Dennis Lindsay, a name to be watching in all of this. Shams, thank you so much for that insight. You just laid out a lot of questions, Shams, that aren't going to be answered today, right? This is something that's going to happen over the next several weeks, next several months, even as we get to and past the NBA trade deadline. But we can answer right now, Brian, is this. The Dallas Mavericks play tomorrow. They face the Phoenix Suns. What are you wanting to hear between now and then, and who is the first voice you're going to be listening to in the wake of all of this? So
I actually want to hear what Cooper Flagg says about this. Yep. I know that this is a lot to ask for an 18-year-old to handle, but I think he actually is at the point, especially with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving sidelined, if he wants to, he can sort of set the agenda for the way the team wants to react to this. This is going to be his role going forward. This reminds me so much of what LeBron went through his first year in the league. He was on a team that was overmatched. He was playing point guard out of position, and things happened to that team. There was an ownership change. There was mid-season coaching change his second year. So Cooper Flagg actually has an opportunity here to show a little bit of leadership for an 18-year-old. I don't expect it, but I want to see what he does. The other thing is the Mavericks have been beaten down here. They need an attitude change. This gives an opportunity to change the air around the team. There is still a lot there on the table for them for this season.
You know, starting the show with this news, Malika, you talked about the idea of the pressure from the fans, almost making it feel like PR. We hear the chants, "Fire Nico," everywhere they go. It affects the players. To me, that's shocking that it got to be at the level where we see a change made. But it is necessary in some ways because, you know, despite this change being made, this is still the same team that's going to play games for the foreseeable future, albeit short term. So, like you said, attitude and also accountability. Accountability has been had right now for the GM. Now, let's see what the players do with accountability on taking ownership of this team, because now you've given the fans what they wanted. Fire Nico, you see the signs right there. All right, what does the team do moving forward?
I'm also very curious in both the short and long term, the health of Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Davis has been out. The last time he came to the Dallas Mavericks and he was injured, he came back in part because he wanted to show Dallas Mavericks fans what they were going to be able to get. Tim MacMahon has reported over the last couple of days that Anthony Davis wants to be ready. There are some conversations internally about whether or not he is. I'm very curious to see how quickly Anthony Davis returns in the wake of all of this, of course, when he is able to do so.
NBA